Welcome to the WWE Podcast Monday Night Raw review for this Tuesday, May 31st, 2022. We've got a lot to cover tonight as Hell in a Cell is just a few days away, including the Cody and Seth pull-apart brawl, WWE insulting Liv Morgan, although maybe not intentionally, Bianca and Asuka go head-to-head on Monday Night Raw, and Bobby Lashley and Omos have their contract signing. We're going to talk about this and so much more with brand new Patreon co-host Ian McAllister right after this. You got to check out The Mentality Show. If you could be a fly on the wall and could hear how men think and really want to hear what goes on in the minds of everyday men, then you should check out The Mentality Show. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook Live. Real men, real talk. The Mentality Show. You can find them anywhere you stream podcasts and YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Just look up The Mentality Show.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me. Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the WWE Podcast Monday Night Raw review. We're going to get to Ian and myself in just one second. By the way, great conversation that we had. For the first time talking, you'd never know it was our first time doing a show together, but sometimes you just have natural chemistry, and when you have a love and a common passion for a specific genre, then you connect pretty quickly, and it was a great show. So we're going to talk about Monday Night Raw in just a second, but I want to just let everyone know, especially given that it's Hell in a Cell week, if you want to join us on Patreon and get everything ad-free, do that now. It's $1 to get in the door. Everything's ad-free. Every show that we do has no ads, and you can get yourself involved and on board for $1 at WWE Podcast at patreon.com/WWE Podcast. You also get access to the Discord server that you can chat with all the other patrons with during the live show and really at any time. So that's available in the $1 tier as well. You can also follow us on any podcast app you have. You can do 99 cents a month on Apple Podcasts for ad-free, or you can, of course, go to our website, www.wwepodcast.com, and sign up for a membership. Go VIP, you get video, and you get a few video updates, and you get everything ad-free as well on our website. So, all right, let's just jump right into it, guys. Let's just jump into Ian and myself talking about Monday Night Raw. A lot of content coming up this week. Don't forget, tomorrow is the mailbag with Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan. Get your emails into me, mailbag at wwepodcast.com. I'll forward it on to the Casual Wrestling Fan, Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan, and then I'll be doing voicemails. After that, normally I'd wrap my week up, but since it's a pay-per-view or a premium live event week, I'm going to be doing a preview and prediction show probably on Friday, as well as the review show Sunday night. So thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, take care, and I'll talk to you next time. Welcome to the WWE Podcast Monday Night Raw review. And guys, I've got a brand new co-host with me tonight, patron of the show. You guys in the Discord server know him as Whisper in the Wind. But the rest of you who are not on the Discord server will now know him as Ian McAllister, who is with us all the way from New Hampshire, very, very far away from you. In reality, probably just a few hours. But hey, welcome to the show, Ian. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. How you doing, man?
I am doing just as good as I can be with two little ones running around, and it's 10 o'clock at night and we have no sleep, but hey, all is right in the world. And before we get going, I want to just give everyone a little bit of a background on yourself, and let them know, hey, like, how long have you been a fan, and what got you into wrestling?
So I honestly watch wrestling. So I'm 30 years old right now, and I started watching when I was like about 8 years old, 9 years old, and I don't know. Like, honestly, for me, unfortunately, like growing up, my dad was like sick a lot, so I was really just with my brother a lot at home, and it was almost, for me, it was an escape. Looking at especially as like an 8 or 9 year old, you're looking at all these guys as like superheroes and just role models, and you look up to them. And for me, it was always from day one. It was Jeff Hardy, as anyone could probably guess with my name, Whisper in the Wind. But what really made me fall in love with it, obviously before social media got into it, and I was very young, was the WWF versus the Alliance in Survivor Series, because I genuinely thought whoever lost was going to be out of a job, out of that company, and it was great, But I think in today's time, kids now wouldn't believe that at all because of the social media and all the information. So I was just grateful to start watching wrestling really, at the end of the Attitude Era, and it was still at its peak. And just keep watching it now. I can't, even if it's, some bad episodes, it's one of those things I can't get rid of. I can't stop watching it.
It's something that's once it's in your blood, even if you go through months of bad programming and just, sometimes eye rolling or embarrassing content, not everything is bad, but when you have really bad shows consistently, you still stick with it. It's amazing. It's like this drug that you can't get out of your system because of the moments that you see sometimes in wrestling that just pull you back in. You have those moments that just grab you and that will remind you, oh, this is why you're a fan. Most recently, Edge's return in 2020 at the Royal Rumble was one of those. If you watch AEW, CM Punk's return to wrestling after 6-7 years, whatever it was. There are those moments that you have, Undertaker in his retirement, that you just get chills and you're like, this is why we love wrestling. So what are some of those moments for you that, just a couple off the top of your head that, I know you mentioned the Alliance in 2001, that whole invasion angle, but do you have any particular moment or match or anything that you're just like, no matter how many times you watch it, you're just like, this is really good stuff?
So I'd honestly say, right before the Ruthless Aggression Era, or kind of in between it, the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, kind of, for me, because it's been a while, it just kind of fused together. But honestly, like for a match, again, repetitive with Jeff Hardy, but Jeff Hardy versus Undertaker, that ladder match. I mean,
make yourself famous, kid. Yeah.
Yeah, because that, for me, that honestly kind of reminded me a little bit of, backtracking to Liv Morgan and Becky when they had the championship match on Raw, and you see her standing at the front of the stage, the entrance, and she takes that deep breath. And I was like, I know she's not going to win, but this is going to be like a good field moment that'll, unfortunately didn't really put her in the right direction. But at that moment, I was like, this is great. But honestly, it's the pops. Anytime, whether someone was rescuing somebody, a certain move, a big return, the crowd was in it. And now it's just like with I can't think of the Thunderdome. It's just like, it's all fake crowd noise because they'll be booing or cheering, and you can visibly see the audience, and they're just standing there. They're looking at their phone. They're barely doing anything. And there is other times where, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but they will do crowd reactions, but they've taken it from other scenarios. Like I was listening to this other podcast, and they stated, like, because they saw themselves in the crowd, and they're like, yeah, this was when, everyone was cheering for Eddie Guerrero, and, when he passed away, and they're putting that frame, 15 years later because they can't find a good, reaction from the crowd. So.
Mm-hmm. And well, no, look, first of all, there are no other podcasts other than this one, right? Like, I mean, I'll pretend you didn't say, yeah, no, trust me. I listen to other wrestling podcasts too. We all know who they are. But anyway, no, I'm with you, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And they do that. They do that somewhat frequently. And when the whole Thunderdome era was going on, the pandemic era, as some of us also call it, I would take advantage of that too if I was WWE production, and I was able to just play God and just with the flick of a switch or the movement of a button, I could get the exact crowd reaction that I want, that the crowd at home is going to perceive as good or bad based on the crowd reaction that I get to manipulate. And so the Thunderdome era is honestly something that You know, you could do an entire like series of episodes on. Not that I really want to even think about that era, just because it feels so depressing and so long ago now
Oh yeah.
that like I don't ever want to go back to review it. I mean, at some point I will, but I'm also still fearful that like in the world that we're in, we could eventually get back to that with something else that happens, and I don't want to jinx anything or put it out into the universe that the Thunderdome era Part 2 could happen. So, but let's move forward a little bit to the current product and.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, just as a whole, how do you feel about the product as we head into, well, Hell in a Cell, which is 6 days away, and you know we start to dip our toe into like SummerSlam, and yeah, Money in the Bank's there, but like SummerSlam season, the stadium shows, like what do you feel? How are you feeling about the product as a whole?
Well, that's the thing that frustrates me is I've never been really had issues with the product. It's the creative team. It's the creative writing. Like, you know, when we get throughout, you know, the mailbag or just any comments from patrons, anything like that, you know, certain ones when they say, oh, like, I can't believe, you know, Seth Rollins is acting like this or so-and-so is doing that. It's like, it's not them unless they have it in their contract that they have control of, you know, their creative writing. It's the writers. And I just, like, even like for Raw, like the content, you know, isn't the best, but like if you switched a few segments around, like for instance, like honestly, the ending of the show should have been that whole brawl with Seth and Cody. That would have been an amazing way to end the show. Yeah. But they do a sloppy job and have Bobby Lashley and Omos. And clearly you could tell that they ran out of time because as soon as he went through the table, his music went on and you see the copyright at the bottom. I'm like, you have a 3-hour show and you still run out of time because you're wasting too much time with commercials and recaps.
That's exactly right. I mean, when I saw the brawl between Cody and Seth, I actually looked at the time, the ticker on my on Hulu. I'm like, oh well, am I already at the end of the show? Because it felt like a show-ending segment, and it wasn't. And you know, for some reason they wanted to showcase Omos and Bobby Lashley, which honestly, like some people crap on that on that program. I think actually it has overachieved what I thought it could be, particularly because Omos has put in a lot more effort, clearly behind the scenes that we're not seeing in his in-ring ability, in his his presence. He's growing up in front of our eyes, maturing as best as he can, given his size. He's very limited, but I do agree that if you swap those segments, the show would have a different feel. That's not crapping on Omos and Lashley as a program, just the positioning of it didn't make sense. Why would you not want to pull apart Brawl going into Hell in a Cell, which, by the way, that match is a Hell in a Cell match with Cody and Seth. Yeah. Like, going into the pay-per-view, why would you not end it with the biggest match that you have? It really made no sense at all. And you know, I don't know. So let's move into Cody and Seth, though, as we're talking about it. I think one of the bright spots of the show. How are you feeling about what happened this week with the pull-apart brawl, with Seth coming out through the crowd and talking trash, Cody coming out and saying, you know, what's stopping me? These 3 ring ropes, the barrier. They brawl through the crowd, and it ends up in a really long pull-apart brawl. Just when you think it's done, one of them comes back to topple the other. So what did you think about this segment?
Honestly, I mean, talking about it, just you talking about it now, it just gave me goosebumps because it wasn't like, if you look at it, that's not that hard to create that in that show. And it feels like it's been years since we've had anything like that. And if I'm not mistaken, hearing in the crowd saying this is awesome, I haven't heard that chant in years, and all it took was a brawl. The only thing that like frustrates me is like I love both wrestlers. You know, I was kind of on the fence with Cody, but then, you know, when he came back and he's really, you know, turning a corner, and I think he learned a lot, you know, on his time away from WWE. But with Seth, it frustrates me because, like, you know, he's doing his job. He's putting over not a new guy, but a new guy coming in. And for me, I just wish, you know, especially after the Royal Rumble with Seth, it looked like he was sort of having like a face turn a little bit with the whole Shield music and everything. And then, you know, he's out of the title picture. I mean, he hasn't had a title in close to over 3 years now, you know, after he lost to The Fiend. So I really think the last matchup that they had, Seth should have won, because that typically goes the best of 3. So if Seth wins this one, I I don't know how you go forward after that. How does Cody's momentum continue into like a championship run or Money in the Bank? So
I think, yeah, and I've been talking to so many co-hosts about this, and it doesn't make sense that with how good Seth Rollins is, and everybody puts him over of how good he is. Hell, Cody even said how good he is, and yet he continues to lose and lose and lose and lose. And people would say, well, it's pro wrestling. Wins and losses don't matter that much. Well, they start to add up and actually chew away at the goodwill of that character if they continue to lose the big match. And in this case, Seth didn't get that kind of middle victory. If there's a typical best of three, which is about average for most programs, he didn't even get that victory in between. WWE decided to have him lose again, and then probably going to lose on Sunday. I mean, I don't see a scenario in which Seth wins that. So that means Seth loses 3 in a row, another big loss on top of big loss on top of big loss on top of big loss. Seth can't buy a win at WrestleMania. So I'm concerned about Seth long term because of how much damage WWE has done to us believing he can win the big one. That's not to say he's not over. That's not to say he hasn't found himself. That's not to say he's not excellent in the ring. He's already a future Hall of Famer. He's excellent on the microphone. There's really nothing wrong with Seth Rollins other than how he's booked. Seth is doing everything he can to overcome that, but I am a bit concerned that WWE is putting all their stock right now in Cody Rhodes, and to sacrifice Seth Rollins with yet another big loss. So, do you see any way in which Seth Rollins wins this? I mean, you just said no, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, no pun intended with the term loss, but like this is a lose-lose situation because Cody wins, then you're drowning all the success. You're pushing it in front of us. Like, let it be. Like, Cody has the talent. He has a great entrance. You don't need to make it like a WrestleMania-like feel to it every single time he's appeared on TV, whether it's on Raw or a pay-per-view or just a promo. And then with Seth, that's like after that, I feel like if he loses, and I'm predicting that he loses, the only way I see that is maybe he wants some time off because he is a workhorse and he is, one of those guys that really did save the Thunderdome, even though his character was a little out there, he was there all the time as well as like Bailey and Sasha and stuff like that. So it's unfortunate because he really, it seems like he's been loyal from day one with WWE where other guys kind of flake out as, things aren't going their way. So at some point he needs to be rewarded for it. I thought he was going to win Money in the Bank. And when he didn't, I knew he was going to screw over Edge. And that was the thing too. It's like, at least he had, like, it was on SmackDown, but at least he got a win over Edge. So, that third and final battle, it was worth it. But this one, it's just, I don't know, just at least finally WWE is sticking like one. I don't like the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view because that's going back to those days when I was watching as a kid, especially hearing is really the Undertaker saying, we're going to be in a Hell in a Cell. That was a big deal. And now WWE, for the first time, I feel like there's only one Hell in a Cell. So it makes it even that much better for this matchup, as opposed to throwing in 3 or 4 different Hell in a Cell matches in Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. So,
well, don't forget, we also have SmackDown. They could easily throw a Hell in a Cell match on SmackDown, like just pull one in there, and I really feel like they probably will, only because we have yet to have a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view that only has one Hell in a Cell match. I'm not against it. I think the less we see of Hell in a Cell, the better, and that's not because it's not a great matchup, but I think it has over the years been watered down by just sticking into the pay-per-view schedule. It's just whatever feuds are going on, it's deserving of the Cell, which is the complete opposite of what that match should mean. Is when a program is that big that they've had several meetings before, that nothing can contain them, they need a final blow off. That is what the Cell is for, a blood feud. And now it's just, well, whatever happens to be going on, you guys get the Cell. Now Seth and Cody, I think, when you look at it, I think it's, out of all the programs going on, I think that one is probably the most deserving, is Seth and Cody. So they got it right in terms of all the matches available right now. But when you look at it, the legacy of the Cell and what it used to mean, you used to get chills hearing about Hell in a Cell. Oh my God, they're going to have a Hell in a Cell match. Now it's like, oh, okay, well, what's going on? Who would make the most sense to be put in the Cell? It's completely backwards, and they're trying to use a gimmick to sell the pay-per-view or the premium live event. They're trying, I'm not a big fan of it. I've hated it when they did that, and I think it's just a complete I think undermining of what Hell in a Cell means. So that said, again, back to this segment, I really had nothing bad to say about it. I mean, Seth made very subtle or not so subtle references to AEW, talking to Cody Rhodes about, you destroyed the throne, meaning if everybody remembers, Cody Rhodes in AEW created or had, I guess the stage crew or whoever recreate Triple H's, his like setup that he had at WrestleMania, like his throne, so to speak. And he took a sledgehammer and smashed it, symbolically, I guess, detaching himself from WWE. And Seth made reference to that on Raw. And there was something else he said about AEW, about going to play with your friends and then realizing you couldn't cut it to come back, talking about the Young Bucks. So I think that was something that was interesting, making reference to AEW without saying AEW. But certainly this is a program that, honestly, even if it went a fourth time, I wouldn't hate, because they're so good together as far as chemistry and in-ring, that if it went a fourth, which I don't think it will, I wouldn't hate it. But beyond this, I honestly don't know where both of these men go after this program. Do you have any idea where both of them could go after presumably the Seth loses? Like you said, maybe he takes time off. I don't know.
You're listening to the WWE Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
You got to check out The Mentality Show. If you could be a fly on the wall and could hear how men think and really want to hear what goes on in the minds of everyday men, then you should check out The Mentality Show. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook Live. Real men, real talk. The Mentality Show. You can find them anywhere you stream podcasts and YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Just look up The Mentality Show.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
So I think they'll both end up winning a qualifying match for Money in the Bank, and they'll be the two people primarily that will be, I think if you look at Money in the Bank, I just feel like in my head I can see just both of them at the top of the ladder, and I feel like that it's not necessarily like the final bow to this whole play that they're having, but I think if they're going forward, that's a good way for Seth to kind of creep back up and not just totally be out of the loop. And I think that would be the nail in the coffin. Essentially, I think it'd be similar to like when John, I don't know who John Cena kind of hit in the head when he won Money in the Bank a couple years ago with the actual briefcase. It might have been like the Big Show or something, and he knocked him off and fell him off. I could see Cody finally doing that to Seth. That's the only way I could see them sort of having like a quote unquote fourth match, is if there's other people involved. But yeah, that's my best bet, is both of them being at Money in the Bank. I thought Seth was going to win it last year, but I personally thought they made a mistake giving it to Big E.
Oh,
but that's
huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I mean, I don't need to go on that rant again. You guys know I was very against that for many, many reasons. But you're right. I mean, I did forget that Money in the Bank is the next pay-per-view, and Cody has been the promo guy for Money in the Bank with the video they ran over and over and over with Cody Rhodes telling everybody what winning Money in the Bank means, which apparently has now changed to you get an opportunity, a main event spot at WrestleMania for the championship. Like, if you go listen to the promo, they ran it many times. I'm like, are they redefining what Money in the Bank means? I don't want them to. Like, that would take away a lot of the fun of what Money in the Bank is, which you could cash that in at any time. Not main event of WrestleMania. We already have a match for that. That's called the Royal Rumble. So I don't think that is a good idea, and hopefully it's something they were just using in promotional material, but it's not actually meant to be literal. Maybe. I hope. I do not want this to mean you get a main event spot for WrestleMania and a championship match. So did you catch that promo as well? Did you see it?
Oh yeah, it was repetitive, and to throw it back, maybe Mr. Kennedy whispered in his ear, because he's the only person to have Money in the Bank where he actually was going to say, no, I'm cashing it in at WrestleMania. Like, actually, obviously Seth did it too, but he didn't make it known to the public. And also, you could start to think, there's they talk about, a women's main event, a men's main event for WrestleMania. There's two nights. So maybe they're going to have a Royal Rumble main event on day one or night one, and then Money in the Bank night two. I mean, we've seen crazier things, so I could see it in that direction.
But boy, would they be hamstringing themselves for not having a mystery main event. Like, you'd have to know ahead of time, way ahead of time, who those two people are, who those really four people are if it's a one-on-one match for both, who the champion is and who the challenger is. And also, I think it would take a lot of the mystery out leading up to WrestleMania season of beyond who wins the Rumble, who's the other championship match. Now, this year, we have a unified championship. Does Roman Reigns, if he's still champion, defend it as WWE and Universal? Is it a single belt, even though there's two? Like, I don't know. They haven't made that clear at all because Roman has yet to actually defend it. So we'll have to see on that. I mean, the brand split's effectively dead anyway. But let's move on here. And I want to ask you about, let's see here. How about Ezekiel? I'm going to jump to Ezekiel a little bit off. I'm not going in order here. Ezekiel and the Mysterios defeat Alpha Academy and Kevin Owens. Ezekiel pinned Chad Gable with a corkscrew suplex, and that followed Stereo 619's. So, again, Kevin Owens seems to be absolutely obsessed with proving that Ezekiel is Elias, which is making it highly entertaining. I mean, Kevin Owens is making this entire thing. He has a match with Ezekiel at Hell in a Cell. So, what do you make of this? Did you like the match, and what'd you make of it?
For me, it was an okay match. Like, for me, like, I'd really like to see, I know we're talking about Elias, Ezekiel, but they need to split up the Mysterios. You don't even need like a heel turn or anything. They need Dominic, at NXT, get his roots going. Like, I know he's behind the scenes learning stuff, but he feels like he's like a 14-year-old kid and doesn't, he's soft spoken on the phone. And then with Ezekiel, I thought, I know he didn't wrestle a lot as Elias, but I liked him better as a wrestler as Elias. I don't know. He was more rugged and he just kind of brawled, where Ezekiel, maybe it's part of the character, but it seems like he's been wrestling for maybe like 3 or 4 weeks. Like, even his like moves are very, I don't know, not botched, but it's just, I know he's getting better, but he's just so out of character. And then, with Kevin, as much as I'd rather see him in the main event status, he is really saving the mid-card level, because, I mean, when all is said and done, that guy needs to be on TV. And I don't mean like Hollywood, like The Rock and, John Cena. He is hilarious. He could do stand up for all we know, but for the Mysterios and everything like that. I'm curious to see how Ezekiel will do on his own, because he's able to have quite a few matches, but in tag teams. So he's had to do a limited work, but I am curious to see how he does on his own. And if there is any type of revealing, like, hey, like we said, who knows? He might have a brother. Look at the Bella twins, with that whole tug of war underneath the ring. Not sure if you remember that, where I think it was Nikki that came out and premiered, and no one had any idea that she was a twin. So, yeah. But
yeah, well, I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, I think if Ezekiel maybe spent some time in the ring with his older brother and he was able to give him some pointers, I think that's why he seems so green. I mean, give the guy some credit. He just has to work with Elias a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, Kevin Owens is honestly the savior of this, like you said. And it's amazing, though, even though this is something that we're complimenting Kevin Owens on, of where he was just a month and a half ago, bringing Stone Cold Steve Austin out of retirement to working with Elias or Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable the fall that Kevin Owens has had. I mean, no fault of his own, and he's still doing entertaining work. But when you look at it, it's like Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event of WrestleMania Night 1 to Ezekiel. I mean, and probably a pre-show match. It's, I mean, that's WWE for you. But beyond that, again, this match I didn't have any problem with, other than, like you said, the Mysterios are as interesting as, my houseplant. Like, it's just, they have, especially, like you said, it's Dominic. Dominic is the one who, he has a bright future. He's good in the ring, but outside of being good in the ring, he's got no personality at all. He is the wallpaper. He is not, he has no personality at all. He, like you said, he looks like he just, walked out of a middle school dance. He's got, just no like manly look to him. He does look like a child. That doesn't help. And on the microphone, it's like he's got the Ronda Rousey syndrome of kind of like just no confidence on the mic. Just very, it's like, speak up, dude. Like, who? I want to shake him and be like, who are you? Like, I just want to grab him. Because I feel like he's just so timid, and I don't know what it is, but he needs some time to develop himself in an NXT or the Capitol Wrestling Center or the Performance Center, and just work on his promos, work on his character, because in ring I think he's fine. I mean, he can always be better, but in ring isn't the problem. It's character, it's presence, the things that you can't teach that his dad has, and right now he does not have it. So outside of that, again, Ezekiel and Kevin Owens, I don't know what to really expect from their matchup because there's nothing on the line at all other than just pride, I guess. But this was okay. Any thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I think going forward with the Hell in a Cell match, I think it'll just be one or two things. Like one, like something will be revealed with like his, quote unquote twin brother, or it's just gonna be a squash match, like a Goldberg match, 3 to 5 minutes, because he doesn't have a big variety of moves. He's very limited. Kevin Owens will take control of that match and kind of guide him through it. But other than that, I feel like that's got to be, like you said, pre-show or first match out of the way. Like there's no, like, it's great when you have like, big matches to start off like the pay-per-view, but that is one where I don't want to see on like hour 2, after watching a great match. Like, get that one out of the way so we can just move on.
and plus the crowd has the most energy towards the beginning of the event, so you're not worried about no reaction with these two, which could, I mean, not just Kevin Owens but Ezekiel. If you're trying to gauge what the fans think of him, where he's at, the best time to do that is towards the beginning of the show, rather than when the fans are starting to get tired and think about leaving, and just they're kind of out of zapped of energy. So yeah, I would definitely put that towards the beginning of the show as well. So all right, let's move on. We got Alexa Bliss also taking out Dewdrop with Twisted Bliss. I don't have much to say about this. I mean, and again, I didn't see this because I got called out by people the last time. I didn't see any kind of interview or promo by Alexa Bliss after or before this match. Am I wrong? Did she speak at all? I don't think she did.
No. Again, after watching it, like the only real close promo she had was before she faced Nikki Ash, or Nikki Ash. I don't know like how you pronounce that, but last week, and it was so weird. I understand, Alexa Bliss has been gone for a while. She's got to get the rust off, but even her promo was like, is this like your first week of promo class? Like you're not the goddess. You're not like the Fiend's like Handman or whatever. Like, I don't know what you are. So the only thing I would say is, like, I think Bliss, as talented as she is, she'll eventually have a story to tell. And like I said, I think she's just getting a few, quick matches out of the way, as she had time off, resting a few injuries and, getting recently married. So, but, with the patience with Alexa, I've been patient with her since, honestly, it was the biggest letdown at WrestleMania when she turned on the Fiend. I think that was very bad writing on WWE's part. So I'm hopeful. She's still fairly young, but we don't know if she'll go down that motherhood and want to start a family. So if she does, you better get the best out of Alexa right now before she wants to put the cleats away. Or the shoes away.
True. At least for a year and a half. I mean, it's not that if she has a baby like Becky Lynch or Ronda Rousey who've had kids that they don't come back. I mean, they do. But you're right. I mean, and the Alexa Bliss story, I would love to sit down and put some truth serum in her and get the real story about what the hell exactly has been going on, right? Like, she gets associated with the Fiend. The Fiend touches her. People are really interested, super invested. Alexa's all in. And then after that, it's like, since the Fiend, she was associated with the Fiend years ago, I can count on one hand how many matches she's had. It's unbelievable that they dove into character development, but they didn't have her in the ring at all. And we were saying, what? Can we just get her wrestling? I mean, she doesn't have to be sitting on a makeshift playground. She doesn't need to be in therapy sessions. She doesn't need to be talking to Lily, which for whatever reason, Lily's still out there. That's why I want an explanation. Like, she's kind of like
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. The only reason she's got that doll is because the WWE warehouse still has 500,000 in storage. So I think it's only for advertisement to sell it, because she puts it on that top rope and she doesn't talk about it, anything. She just carries it. And I think it's just to get a few more merchandise sales.
I wonder if one of the features of the doll is that it winks. If it doesn't, I'm not going to buy it. I mean, like, so,
yeah.
That could be it. I really don't. Yeah. If they really made that many dolls, I think they were severely misled about the interest in Lily. I mean, there was so much pushback. Once Lily got involved is when actually things kind of went downhill for her. With the Shayna Baszler segment that ended Raw, she went through backstage and suddenly everyone's gone, and Shayna Baszler's acting like she's in a horror movie. It was bad. I mean, that was really bad. And as great as the Fiend was, Bray Wyatt, he was involved in some terrible booking. I mean, Seth Rollins with the Hell in a Cell that you alluded to the last time he was champion, which is unbelievable. That whole Hell in a Cell debacle where people booed the match. And then, of course, you get the WrestleMania match with Randy Orton and Alexa turning on him that no one ever explained how or why, or even why that was a turn. I remember watching that. I'm like, is this really even a turn? It's not clear. And then, the matchup there was super disappointing, even though the build between Randy and Bray was really, really good. But anyway, I do think that this matchup, I don't have much to say about it. It was about 2 or 3 minutes long. And Alexa Bliss beat Doudrop, which just to me, all this match tells me is the pecking order of where they're placing the women. Alexa Bliss getting the clean victory over Doudrop tells me, okay, they view Alexa Bliss higher than Doudrop, which isn't saying a ton, but Doudrop was just facing Bianca Belair a couple of months ago, and putting her, her in jeopardy. So it's kind of like, we'll have to see if Alexa Bliss continues to get victories or if this is one of those 50-50 deals.
Yeah, and I didn't have a problem with, Doudrop losing that. I just had a problem with their direction where, like, I think it was 3 Raws ago where she, looks at Nikki, backstage, is like, you ready to, like, be serious now? Or, I don't know what she actually said, but it just seemed, all right, she's going to lose this whole superhero gimmick, like, because she needs to. It was just awful. Worst Money in the Bank cash in. Like, should not have had that. But, yeah, like, I was just more disappointed that there is, like, nothing, like, not that, like, I don't really see Doudrop, as a future 10-year with WWE, but it's like, if you're going to put her with Nikki, like, especially with her new gear, with Doudrop's new gear, it was like, I felt like this was just another version of, the goth Rhea Ripley, and you have this superhero, like, polar opposites. It's just, they're just throwing women together, and it's just, they're going backwards. They were doing so well with, after that Evolution stuff, and having that, triple threat main event. It's just, I don't know what they're doing. They're going backwards with the respect that they're not giving to the female wrestlers.
Yeah, it's so up and down. And honestly, I think it's not like there's to me, even star power missing. Like, Charlotte's taking time off. She's getting married. It seems like every one of there's people are getting married left and right. I feel like, for whatever reason right now, people have got marriage fever in WWE. And it's not even that there's star power missing. Like, Ronda Rousey's champion, but yet it's the weirdest thing that I get the sense that, not just because I don't care about Ronda Rousey on a personal or professional level, but I'm getting the sense that fans are just kind of ho-hum about Ronda Rousey. Now, I know this isn't Monday Night Raw, of course, it's SmackDown, but, just quickly, how do you feel about Ronda Rousey? Like, because we're talking about the women's division in general, I am not sensing the same excitement or enthusiasm as the first time around with Ronda Rousey. This kind of feels like a reheated version of Ronda Rousey, where it's kind of lukewarm interest. Sometimes you hear some boos, but she's generally received positively. How do you think about, or what do you think about, rather, Ronda Rousey in the women's division? Do you even think she's needed?
No, I mean, I think WWE panicked, when they did that with John Cena, Brock Lesnar, that type of stuff. But I don't know. With Ronda, I'm not gonna lie. Like, during the Royal Rumble, as soon as I heard her music, I was kind of pumped. Just initial reaction, just because I haven't seen her forever. But it was like, she wasn't needed. It was a terrible main event. She should have had her main event with Becky Lynch. At least Becky could have had more, I don't know, pizzazz, I guess, in those promos. Charlotte is just, I can't stand her. She's one where, and it totally made sense. She's probably like, you know what, you can have the belt, but I still want my WrestleMania moment. and all that. But with Ronda, her first run, she was amazing because she was a fan. She was super excited. You watch those documentaries where, she had that eye to eye with The Rock, and she was like, I had to hold in my smile. I was so excited. And that she was riding high. She was on that honeymoon phase. She comes back. She's like, oh yeah, I have to do a little bit more work. Just my name alone isn't going to make everyone excited. I have to do moves again. And especially being a mother now, I think her priorities have drastically changed. And we've seen crazier things, but maybe in backstage, like, Ronda, we need you to be like average Joe, like just plain monotone. We don't want any, because she's better as a heel. She needs to turn heel, and I don't know. I think she needs to lose it. And again, with going off topic a little bit, with the women's division, like, Sasha, I heard that she was in line to win Royal Rumble, which I think she should have, regardless of, how she left and everything like that. Ronda didn't need to win Royal Rumble. Brock Lesnar didn't need to win Royal Rumble. Those are opportunities for people that sort of like Money in the Bank, up and coming. They've never won a title. It gets them in that new main event level. But you give it to Ronda, she doesn't need it.
You know where I think people like Brock and Ronda should be? I don't think that it's fair to say that they don't have a place in pro wrestling. I think they do, and I think it does bring eyeballs to the product. It does generate interest. It creates social media buzz. But I think the best position for them would be in a non-title, just blood match in terms of just a feud that you get into with someone that you find a personal issue to work out. And that's it. I think the best thing for people that come in for part-time programs should not be challenging for championships, because most of the time when they come back, especially if like The Rock comes back or John Cena comes back, they're not going to win the championship. So right off the bat, that kind of tips the scale to, they aren't going to win. So you immediately know they're going to lose the match. But also, if they do win the championships like Brock did and like Ronda did, you kind of are resentful of it, even if their position is baby faces, because you're looking at it and siding with the rest of the roster. That's like, hey, they've been here the entire year. You waltz in, win one match, and all of a sudden you're the main event of WrestleMania. Like that, fans are starting to tune into that. And the fact that Ronda Rousey is not confident on the microphone. Sure, she's good. She's good in the ring. She is a legitimate athlete. I have nothing to take away from her there. But I don't think the women's division needs her at all right now. And so, all right. Well, let's get back to the Monday Night Raw review here. Yeah. And 24/7 Championship. I actually didn't see this, and it's probably for the best. So maybe you could give a more detailed analysis on Tamina defeating Dana Brooke to win the title. So Tamina is the 24/7 champion. Nobody's meaner than Tamina. What did you think about this? And then, wait a minute, and then Akira Tozawa defeats Tamina. I'm just reading that because I missed it. So Akira Tozawa apparently pinned Tamina, and he is now champion.
Yeah, I was just about to step in on that part because I think they I don't know who initiated, but they kissed in the ring, and then he did the roll up and got it. But for me, like I said, whether it was the voicemail or the email, the 24/7, all those wrestlers, when I was talking about guest refereeing, I definitely agree with you. Not every week, but just here and there, give them a different purpose. Because honestly, I know as a wrestler, they want to be out there and competing. But if I was one of those guys, I'd rather be a referee than look silly just running around the ring with 3 or 4 other wrestlers. To me, that just I think that's just extremely disrespectful. And that whole thing was just it just ruined it, because even though Miz TV has been kind of dragging on for these last couple of years, it was kind of cool to see Montez and I can't think of the other guy's name, but his partner
Angelo Dawkins.
Yeah, and they pull a line from The Rock. I don't know, that was kind of random. They asked him a question and they said it doesn't matter so and so, but it just was all chaotic. They have Miz TV, they have those guys interviewing, then all of a sudden they have chasing the 24/7 title, and then there's a random match in the middle of the ring while Montez and his partner Dawkins is just sitting on those chairs. I'm just what is going on right now? This seems like it would be something that you guys like practice before the show. It's just, I don't know. I don't think people are getting their money's worth for sure for the 24/7. But sorry. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is, with the 24/7, just for a while when it wasn't on TV, I think 24/7, the title, all that stuff, just keep it on, Twitter, Peacock, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff. Don't put it on cable. I'm fine with that. So
I think that's a good analysis or a good suggestion for the 24/7 title, where it doesn't belong on the mainstream television. Like if it's kind of like it's got its little niche audience where people that are interested in the 24/7 title can go follow it on social media. I mean, there's millions of people that follow WWE. People can find it if they want to. I think that a lot of times they include it just to fill time because they have 3 freaking hours to fill. So I know that it's a bathroom break for a lot of people, but I also know some people for some reason still find the 24/7 championship entertaining. At the beginning of it, I said, yeah, it's fun. It's going to be hilarious for a couple of months, but it's going to be like that fruit striped gum you bought in 1996, where it lasts 5 seconds. And you're like, oh, it's gone. Like Juicy Fruit or any of those gums that we all knew. Anyway, I'm referring to things. If you're not a 90s kid, you have no clue what I'm talking about. But it's kind of like that. It's like it's a lot of fun for a short period of time. And then it needs to just die its own death. Like it's just a circle of life with this championship, but it has hung on and hung on and hung on, and it's like a corpse of a championship. And they shouldn't even call it a championship, because if you're telling me that a championship is everyone in the world is eligible for this championship, well, then there's exactly zero prestige to it. And so anyway, I know it's supposed to be, I'm digging too deep, but it's supposed to be just kind of a fun little segment that's a bathroom break for some people. But all right, let's move on here. We got a much more serious matchup next. Mustafa Ali defeated Ciampa via disqualification. There was interference by Theory. There was a stipulation that if Ali won, he would get a future shot at Theory's United States Championship. And after the match, Theory then continued to attack Ciampa, or rather Ali, and said that the match would happen immediately. So then, of course, we got a United States Championship match where we got Theory retaining after Ali did show a little bit of fire and hit that tornado DDT, which, by the way, Theory sold hilariously good. I mean, he bounced all over the ring. And so there was that hope spot, but ultimately Theory hit the A-Town, which I still don't understand exactly what that means. I don't know what A-Town means. But he hit his finish, and Ali did lose, and then Adam Pearce comes out and says, well, wait a minute, Vince McMahon says, I want to see a fair fight, so they're going to face each other at Hell in a Cell. So I'll let you take the lead on this. What did you think about this whole segment?
First of all, Mustafa Ali, pick a side, dude. If you're going to be a heel, be a face. Like, you're going back and forth. You're getting close to Big Show as far as how many times he's switched from a heel to a face. I know they, in the commentary, they said, if he wins this match, he'll get a championship match. But if you look at it, it's a championship contenders match. So to me, that means I feel like if whoever wins that, gets a match. So in my eyes, I'm like, well, if Ciampa wins, he should get a U.S. title match. So after that whole match, regardless if that wasn't the case, Ciampa, didn't get the win and got screwed out of it. Obviously the most simple thing to do is have Ciampa come back and, beat the crap out of Theory, but they're not going to do that. But I don't know. I mean, with Theory, I don't know what, maybe it's the in-ring skills that Theory has, but his character and everything is garbage. The whole selfie thing, it's just like, what are you, 16? You just got your first phone? Like, enough of this. And, putting down like solid wrestlers like Finn Balor. Like, I mean, that just, to me, and also his finisher, which is pretty unique, but, if he's going to be, quote unquote, a main eventer, good luck trying to do that on a 280, 300 plus pound guy. Like, I think the only guy that could do those things was like John Cena, but I don't see Theory doing his A-Town on a big dude. So I think he's limited. But the match itself, I mean, that was definitely one where I'm like, all right, time to go to the bathroom or get some food or see what's on Twitter, because, I mean, he wasn't going to win that. And again, I feel like this is probably just a filler match. The only reason I would love for Theory to lose it, but what is Mustafa Ali going to do with it? I mean, he as well as a lot of other, he's very vanilla on the mic. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a boring match for sure at Hell in a Cell, and it was predictable. So on Raw.
Yeah, I actually was a bit perplexed about how everyone was okay with the match just happening out of nowhere. Like, I mean, the referee did ask Ali if he wanted to continue, but yet all the time we hear that Adam Pearce is the one that makes the matches around here. It has to be official. Well, how the hell did it become official? And don't tell me Vince McMahon allowed it, because we got no confirmation that Vince McMahon said the match was okay. I know it's a little thing, but we're constantly told that the wrestlers don't make the matches around here. Adam Pearce does, right? Which again is kind of only applies when they need it to. But the match, I actually, I'm looking forward to the match from the perspective of pure wrestling, because I think both are very good in the ring. I mean, I understand about Theory's gimmick. I get it. He is a bit of a kind of like a D-bag frat boy gimmick, where he's just, or maybe like high school-ish, where he's just super immature. By the way, Theory has got one of the scariest smiles of all time. I mean, if you look at his, like the way, and he's a good looking dude, but like when he smiles really big, it's scary. Like I don't know, his teeth and his mouth are huge, and I don't know what it is. It's supposed to be that way, but like especially the picture he did when he first won the United States Championship, and he's with Vince McMahon on stage, and they took a selfie. It's a scary picture with Theory. And anyway, I think that this matchup at the Hell in a Cell is going to be just fine from a wrestling perspective. I could also see this being a pre-show match if they wanted it to be, even though it's the United States Championship. So again, this was fine for me. I guess I'm a little bit higher on this matchup being from a wrestling perspective. Probably going to be just fine, if not good. It'll probably be good, okay to good at Hell in a Cell for the United States Championship, of which, of course, Theory has almost no chance of dropping it, because, like you said, he's Vince McMahon's protege. Vince McMahon is literally putting a lot of time into this guy, and he handpicked him. He's not going to lose clean to Ali, who was, by the way, the leader of Retribution, and before that, he was a guy like walking on the streets curing people from drugs, if anybody remember those promos. So he's been bouncing around from heel to face for a while now, and so yeah, I have no problem with the matchup itself. Just the story is a little off the rails. Yeah.
Does I fully agree with that. They both are very skilled wrestlers, but sometimes even when you have two great wrestlers, there's like somehow still not going to have a good match. Like, I don't know if it's the chemistry or just the booking, but I do hope that, even if it's a predictable match, we still get some good moves, especially from Ali. During that short championship match that he had with him, I was really hoping, even if he didn't land the move, I was hoping to see his, I don't know, I forgot what his special is, but I think he does like a 650 splash or something like that. But it just reminds me of like Ricochet with his moves. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, with the only thing I say is, I just do not want to see Theory in that Money in the Bank ladder match. That scares me, because I think we've all said this before with situations when we're like, if this person wins, I'm done watching. And I say that to myself, and then a week later I'm like, all right, I'm back watching it. But yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that they're two very good, sound, fundamentally wrestlers that are athletic as hell. That sometimes you take two guys like that and you think automatically they're going to have a great chemistry, and they don't. I can give you an example of two guys back in the late '90s, early 2000s, megastars, one of the two biggest names of all time that I don't think had good chemistry at all, and that's Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker. I don't think their styles meshed well at all. I don't think they had terrible matches, but I remember their match, just the way that they both wrestled with their Austin being a brawler, but Undertaker being the more slow, methodical type of wrestler. I don't think they gelled well, which is really crazy to say how good both of those are and the legendary careers both of them had. So there's one example. Just because you're on paper a great wrestler doesn't mean that it's going to translate with another great wrestler in the ring. So, all right, well, let's move on here. Riddle and Shinsuke, who defeated the Usos via another disqualification. It was kind of a night of disqualifications here. Jimmy used Riddle's scooter to hit Riddle, and the match was also a championship contenders match, which, by the way, has anyone defined exactly what that is outside of just a normal match? Like, for example, if this wasn't labeled as a championship contenders match, yet Riddle and Shinsuke still won the match, couldn't you still stake the claim that we beat the champions and therefore we should get an opportunity at the championship? They're just trying to, I guess, create the perception that it's a bigger match than it actually is, when in reality it's implied that, okay, if you beat the champions, you're probably in the conversation for a championship opportunity. But that's neither here nor there. So last thing on this, and I'll toss it to you. Let's see. Riddle hit Jay with a top rope RKO after the match, and that was pretty much it. And the crowd loved that part of it. So, what'd you think about this?
As I've said before, Riddle is really he's really coming along. When he first came in, it was just like, all right, like, put down the grass for just like 5 minutes, dude. Like, whether that's your personality or not, like, I couldn't take him serious. But when he's in the ring, it's like his MMA style fighting. Like, he is just so intense and in the moment. I hope that, again, like I think I said in the mailbag, like, I think he just get rid of the scooter. Like, you don't need to totally be a serious dude, but when he came back on Monday Night Raw and just kind of walked down, I even like that. His wrestling style is amazing, and I do love the flashes of Randy Orton's moves, but also, like, you are your own person. You're very talented. So go back to your high flying moves, go back to your actual finisher. But, with Riddle, I'm assuming right now that he is just doing this tag team with Shinsuke just to sort of do like revenge. Cause Shinsuke, I mean, we were all like, all right, he gets double super kicked, doesn't get any revenge. Riddle needs revenge. So maybe they're just kind of doing this for a couple weeks, but I hope after that, like you said in other podcasts, he'll get sort of a singles push, and that I'm really hoping that dream match where it's like a fatal 4-way with him and Orton and McIntyre and Roman Reigns. That would be amazing.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's just my guess, although I've had other people say, well, no, they've already lined up Roman Reigns' 3 next opponents, which are Riddle and Orton and Drew McIntyre, but not in a fatal 4-way match, but just singles matches over the next several months, eventually leading to The Rock at WrestleMania next year in Hollywood, which I've said before, if they don't pull the trigger on that this year, it ain't going to happen because of everything else going on. So to me, this is like now or never. Like, you got to do Rock Roman this year, or it's not something that's going to happen, I don't think. But this matchup here, again, I mean, I didn't have any issue with all 4 of these men. All 4 of these men are excellent in the ring. Riddle does, like you said, it had the whole kind of just like, yeah, like I'm smoking too much reefer, but I'm here trying to be cool. I hated his character. They caught lightning in a bottle with Randy, and it has worked immensely well. They're selling tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of T-shirts, merchandise, RK Bro 420 T-shirts. Yeah. I mean, and you know what? If I was WWE, first of all, I'm a for-profit organization first and foremost, and people demonize that, but they're in the business of making money, and I'm going to do what is best for the company to make money. And if right now Riddle and Orton staying together would benefit me on the bottom line, I'm going to keep them together, even if sometimes it doesn't make sense storyline wise. So, I think oftentimes I and others forget that, okay, it's not all about story. They have to worry about the bottom line. But that said, this matchup was fine. And I think that they are in line to get a title shot. Do I think they're going to win that title shot? Absolutely not. I mean, the Usos, I think, are going to remain the undisputed or the unified tag team champions for quite some time. So anything else before we move on?
Yeah, I just think, like when you're going back to like some of the part-timers, or just those matches that are so good, or it's such a good story that you don't actually need a title. And I would have preferred some form of revenge from Riddle or Shinsuke in a I don't know how they would do it, but you don't need to have a championship match. You don't need to do this type of storyline or this next chapter with the Usos. Just screw them out of the titles from somebody else, or just, I don't know, hit, Roman with a chair during the match. I don't know, something simple like that. I don't think they need to do a tag team title match for this. And the contenders matches, it's like, just go back to the number one contenders matches with two separate guys, because clearly if you beat the champion and you face them at the next pay-per-view, you're not going to win. Like we all know that. And like, kind of just backtracking, because I had this thought and I didn't want to forget it, but some of the best wrestlers I've seen in the past, and I didn't realize it until recently, are the ones that don't have a title involved or don't have one on them. And a perfect example is Shawn Michaels. When he resurrected his career in 2002, yeah, he had a short title run, and I never understood why, he never won another title, especially against John Cena. But some of his best storylines in his matches had nothing to do with titles. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there before I threw that out of my brain.
Yeah, no, it's a good one it's a good example to bring up, and it's something that I don't think people realize about Shawn Michaels on his return in 2002, facing Triple H at SummerSlam. I think that, you look at Shawn Michaels and he's regarded as one of the best of all time with good reason, and yet at the same time, especially in his second run, he was barely around the championship in terms of winning it, outside of the one Elimination Chamber match that he won it. And then I think dropped it a month later. There's really not much he did with the championship. So, yeah, it's a good analogy. But continuing here on Monday Night Raw, Liv Morgan takes on Rhea Ripley. Liv Morgan beat Rhea Ripley via pinfall after a roll-up, which was after a backstabber. AJ was at ringside to help her fight off interference from Damian Priest. Finn Balor also helped. There was no Edge. So that was interesting to note. There was no promo by the Judgment Day, which I was a bit disappointed about. To me, beyond what happened in this matchup, which I think was interesting that they had Rhea take a loss here, is what they put on the screen. And I actually made a TikTok video out of this. I put it on my Twitter because it, to me, is absolutely embarrassing. Liv Morgan, when she came out, they put on her graphic. You know how sometimes they put accomplishments like 16-time women's champion, or Royal Rumble winner, or this or that. What they put on Liv Morgan's graphic when she came out this week, which, by the way, she's been with WWE for 8 years, fan of video games and scary movies, and she grew up as a huge WWE fan. I'm thinking to myself, okay, even if this is her first day, you don't do that. Hell, put in her, she can run a mile in, 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Put in anything. This stuff she puts in here describes a 58-year-old dude living at his mom's house in her basement. I'm a huge WWE fan and I like video games and scary movies. That qualifies 98% of the audience watching that they could also be a WWE superstar. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was. I was so just put off by that. That's unbelievable. But so anyway, did you catch that? What they put on her graphic?
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because it's things like that where I'm I don't. Maybe the general fan doesn't see that, but I was just first thing I thought of was that those are great facts that you want to put on a worksheet that your 5-year-old son brings home from preschool or grade school. And then I also thought of I think it was just kind of making fun of him, but when Matt Hardy version 1.0 or whatever he was called back in the day, he had those random facts where he's I don't like mustard on my hot dog or something like that. I was just this is embarrassing, and it was awful. It's just, I don't know, it's just disrespectful towards Liv, and it's just if you don't actually have legit accomplishments or whatever, just don't even put it up there. You don't need to. You don't need to put something up there every time. But
they could put anything. They could put the number of victories she has, even though, okay, when you analyze it, that doesn't mean a whole lot. How many losses does she have? But at least they put something in there that makes her look like a credible superstar. We're supposed to believe that everyone coming in these doors are the most well-rounded, cream of the crop, top athletes at WWE could bring in, and yet all of a sudden they're now talking about how she likes video games and scary movies. Well, so you know what? So does my 4-year-old son. Like he likes scary things like Halloween. He likes to play video games. I'm trying to get him to be a WWE fan. Are you telling me he has the same credentials and resume as Liv Morgan? I mean, there's no excuse for this. Okay, Liv Morgan hasn't been a women's champion. You can pull out a stat and make the stats work for you. You can pull out a number, like I said, her number of wins, how many minutes she's been in a Royal Rumble match in total. Like, you can make the numbers work for you to at least attempt to make it look credible. I know it was only on the screen for probably 10 seconds or less, but I'm like, who put this together? I mean, that's
what you put up for, like, if for some reason you could do that with a jobber, that's what you put up there for a jobber that no one knows. But for Liv, especially with social media and how many fans, either follow them on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, we already know all that stuff. But regardless, that's just general. Like, I feel like everyone loves video games. Everyone is a super fan of WWE. Like, if you're a wrestler for WWE and you're not a fan of WWE, what are you doing there? It's kind of common sense. And it just, again, like, we could go talk about this for hours of how disrespectful it is, but we're running out of time. So
I hear you. It's one of those things that I actually was put off the rest of the match, and while what happened in the match is important, I think that to me was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So if anybody doesn't believe me, they think I'm making it up. I know you don't, but if anybody does, I put it out there. I screenshotted it. It's on my Twitter. It's everywhere. But anyway, all right, let's move on here. And before we get to the main event, which was kind of a weird main event, there's one other thing that happened. Bianca Belair defeating Asuka with a reverse into a pin. The match started after the show. The two women brawled. Belair came out and was able to reverse an Asuka pin into one of her own. Lynch then struck the second after the match ended and put both women in on the mat. I think she hit the manhandle slam, i.e. the rock bottom, on Bianca Belair. So what did you make of all this? Did you enjoy the Bianca Belair Asuka match?
I mean, for a wrestling standpoint, of course, because Bianca, like me and you have both agreed, can't wait for her to turn heel. But like, for both of them, they do amazing work, but I think it's completely unnecessary you're kind of taking away some of the pay-per-view, like, obviously you want to see them kind of, brawl here and there, but to actually have a legitimate match right before it, like, even though it's a triple threat, you're kind of giving away some of, the moves and the sets that they're going to probably do in Hell in a Cell. And for me, like, I don't know if you agree with this, but WWE is making it way too obvious with the last show before the pay-per-view, because whoever is standing tall at the end of the show before the pay-per-view, I feel like 90% of the time they lose that match, in that next pay-per-view. So I'm just like, all right, Bianca really hasn't made much noise in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so that just tells me that she's probably going to retain and build up her strength as, like, oh, she overcame 2 future Hall of Famers. But yeah, I mean, even after, I was very surprised that they had her actually beat her sort of clean. I thought it was just going to end in a DQ, because the way how Becky did everything at the end, she could have just done that by causing a disqualification, protecting Asuka from losing. But I don't know. In general, I thought it was a good match, but I think they give away too much sometimes before an actual pay-per-view.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made for that. And I mean, if you listen to the crowd too with Bianca Belair, she got, I think, one of the most lukewarm, kind, almost negative I mean, it wasn't an overwhelmingly positive reaction for Bianca Belair, and I think a lot of it has to do that she's been, even since winning the championship, been really put into the background of WWE, especially in the women's division, and not forgotten about, but boy, has she taken a back seat, even though she's the Raw Women's Champion. And you know what? Her gimmick, as I've said many times, is a hair away from being a heel. You can't call yourself the EST of everything and somehow maintain a babyface status forever. I think when she turns heel, it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, look, I think that this matchup was fine. I think it did what it needed to do, which was just continue the momentum and anticipation for the Hell in a Cell event, which is the triple threat. And interesting last note on this, and we'll move to the main event, is that at the beginning here, when Becky was talking about how the odds have been stacked against me my whole life, and that the odds are stacked against me in this match, I'm like, well, wait a minute. You're playing with house money. What do you mean the odds are stacked against you? Everybody here has a 1 in 3 chance of winning. It's not specific to you. I mean, she's talking about how, the odds are stacked against her. I'm like, well, not really. Again, you have nothing to lose here. Like, you're not the champion. If anything, Bianca could make that argument that she has the disadvantage here, as WWE always has to point out. No matter how many times, like thousands of times. Thousands we've seen a triple threat. We always have to have somebody say that they don't need to be involved in the decision to lose the belt. It's like they somehow think that we're going to forget this. And I don't know. So Bianca said it. I think it was Bianca who said it this past Monday. She's like, I don't even need to be involved in the decision to lose my championship. It's like, I mean, I don't even have to say about that anymore. It's the most overstated sentence in all of pro wrestling. But all right. Did you have any final thoughts before I move to the main event here, which is the contract signing?
I just think when they repeat a lot of that stuff, maybe it's just the audience. They're striving for a younger audience, but it's like even an 8-year-old or a 5-year-old obviously knows at a certain point. Like, they're a lot smarter than years back. So I think a lot of times when they repeat that stuff, it's for, I think, a new audience that has no idea, but it's just such common sense. And not to backtrack, because I was gonna forget, but in that match with Liv and Rhea, not sure if you noticed it, but it was a botch finish. The referee, when she went for the third one for the 3 count, she actually tucked her arm as if she was going to kick out, and then they just ring the bell, and AJ celebrated with her. But no one, I don't know if you,
I missed it.
You go back on, because I had to go back, and I was like, I didn't hear like that third, clap. And then you show the replay, and you see her, like, they kind of cut the ref out like halfway, but you see her go down, but she kind of does that tuck where she avoids hitting the mat. But I don't know. It's just sloppy. But anyway, if you ever get a chance to look at it, it's pretty noticeable.
All right. Yeah, no, I want to take a look at that, because I usually catch that stuff. I must have turned away or whatever. So yeah, all right. Interesting. Well, let's move on to the main event here, which was a kind of a weird main event of Bobby Lashley signing his contract for the handicap match against Omos and MVP at Hell in a Cell. And as most contract signings end, I think I'd love to know the percentage of contract signings that end with somebody through a table. It ended with Omos and Lashley of brawling. Security got tossed, i.e. the local wrestling talent, got tossed over the top rope. Cedric Alexander attacked Lashley from behind. I actually didn't see that coming. And then that allowed MVP and Omos to attack Lashley before Lashley was about to get set up to be put through a table. He turned the tide and was able to spear Omos through the table as MVP looked on and looked very concerned. So what did you think about this final build for the Omos and MVP at Hell in a Cell?
I think for me, the only good thing that came out of it was they ran out of time. Personally, like, I know a lot of people don't like Bobby Lashley as a face, and the only reason I sort of like him as a face is because I'm throwing it back to when he, debuted in like 05, 06. Obviously, he talked way less, back then, but he was awesome. Like having that match against Umaga, the billionaire versus the billionaire, and ECW champion. He had a bright future, and it just didn't go his way. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind if he took the belt off of Rowan too, even though he's, I said in the voicemail or the email that, he's a veteran, but I wouldn't mind him even taking off, because I think he could destroy him. But yeah, I think the contract signings are way too repetitive, and it just reminds me of AEW with all their, like, they turn the lights out for whoever comes out for a debut, and it's just getting old. Like, these contract signings make it more interesting. Like, again, I know it's on cable, but I would love to see more of a UFC contract signing where they just tell it how it is. I know they're in character, but at least with UFC, they can just talk crap all they want. It just gets so intense. So
yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, it is a tried and true formula, and there's been a lot of entertaining moments over the years with contract signings. But I do think that it is something that does need to go away for quite a while. And it also makes you wonder, well, what if, they announced the match, but they didn't sign the contract? Is it not official? And what about every other match that happens impromptu? Do they have to sign a contract, or is it just like, do they sign the contract afterwards? Like, I mean, these logistics of contract signings that need to happen, shouldn't the contract sign? Like, why do they even need to sign a contract? They already are under contract with WWE, and they have to do what WWE says in theory, and they have to be in, like, why do they have to sign an additional contract for something that they already are contracted to do under WWE's like terms and conditions? It's kind of bizarre when you think about it. I understand it's pro wrestling and its presentation, and I don't hate all contract signings, but it is something that has been overused too much over the years. It's like going to work and having my boss say to me, how do you feel about doing this special project? And you're going to have to do it because that's your job, but you have to have a contract signing to do that special job. It's like, well, no, that's just covered. It's covered under my general umbrella of this is my tasks and duties under this position. But anyway, I didn't hate this segment. I really didn't. I thought it was okay. It was a strange positioning, as you and I talked about, of being the main event of WrestleMania, when you mentioned that Cody and Seth brawling would have been a much more exciting way to end the show, and I agree. But having these two end it with a spear through a table, I mean, it's aesthetically satisfying. Seeing somebody get slammed through a table is always fun to watch. But I also do think it tips the favor into Omos probably getting the victory here over Bobby Lashley at the Hell in a Cell event. So it was fine, and I didn't hate it. It was okay.
yeah, I just hope. I mean, unfortunately, historically speaking, when you look at all these wrestlers that are like giants, I mean, they burn out so quickly. So don't get me wrong, Omos has definitely improved on the mic and even just in ring skills. But it's like, look at the great Khali. He destroyed the Undertaker when he debuted, and he became a joke like 3 or 4 years later. It's like Omos would just be better as I actually liked him when he was just sort of like a bodyguard for AJ Styles. And honestly, after like that squash match with AJ, I think he should have just kind of faded out. But Vince always just like these big wrestlers, and he just can't, come to terms with what the viewers want nowadays. But yeah, it's, hopefully it turns into something positive for both these wrestlers. I hope we see maybe 30 seconds of MVP out in the ring. He's just looking old and old. I mean, I know he can move around here and there, but it's just like, get these old wrestlers out of here. Like there's a, what do they do for the Yankees and Red Sox when they have alumni or retired guys come in for
Old Timers Day? They have all that.
Yeah, they should do that with wrestling. Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, MVP is definitely in the twilight of his career, especially when you look at the rest of the talent and you see, Ricochet perform just before, MVP comes out or something. It is a bit of a stark difference. But also the style of today's pro wrestling has evolved into a much more high flying style than you and I saw back in the Ruthless Aggression even era, or even into the early PG era. So, but yeah, maybe Omos after this can go back to guarding the door and being a bouncer for Raw Underground or something. I mean, that's what he first started out with, was being that guy at the door of Raw Underground. But I think that this matchup is going to be okay, and it's going to showcase what Omos can do and the progress he's made. And I ultimately think that he's going to get the victory. But yeah, I don't have much more to say about that. So did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with Raw or the product in general before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, I just, I'm not sure if you're a fan of The Office at all with Michael Scott, but a quote I can always say is, "I'm prepared to get my heart broken again every week." I think he recently was single or got, it was a breakup or something like that. So every Monday and Friday, I have high expectations, and they rip my heart out, but I'm ready for it every week, hoping for something.
And I can't tell you how many times my wife's almost filed for divorce because I say that's what she said too many times. I mean,
my gosh.
Because she says so many different things, and she's like, oh my God, it's so hard. I'm like, that's what she said. And she's like, she just gets so tired of it. It's just, I don't know. It's always right there, and I have to bite my tongue. And it's partly because of Michael Scott, but partly because it's just a hilarious line. But yeah, I'm a big fan of The Office, Parks and Rec, all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it all fits. Yeah. And they're so rewatchable. Like, you just pick a random episode and you're just like, I want to turn my mind off for 20 minutes, and you just do it, and then it just keeps running and running and running, and you get to the point of embarrassment where it's Netflix asks you, are you still watching?
And well, the worst thing for me is like I've watched it so many times where I know a line's coming up before it happens, so like I'll just be watching any show, and Nicole, my girlfriend, will be there, and I'll say something. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, look at the screen. And then 5 seconds later, she's like, you really got to get out of the house. You're getting cabin fever here, buddy. But it is what it is. So
cool. Well, Ian, it's been so much fun. I really appreciate you coming on. Did you want to share any social media or anything like that before we wrap things up? Any final comments or plugs? Anything?
Yeah. You guys, anyone that's on here, on Discord, Whisper in the Wind. You can find me on Twitter at it's IanMac13. I'm pretty social with all WWE content, and hopefully, like I've said in the chat, if anyone needs a co-host for a night or a fill-in, I'm more than welcome to. I could talk. You could ask my family. I talk about wrestling way too much, so I definitely need to be around people that want to listen to it, and just want to give a nice little shout out to my two nephews and niece, Asher Beckham and Landon. Asher and Beckham are 5 and 8. They actually went to WrestleMania Backlash. I've never been to a pay-per-view, and they already beat me to it once. So they have an amazing father, treating him to that, and just want to give a shout out to my beautiful girlfriend, Nicole, that we're gonna have our first child, a baby boy, Wyatt McAllister, in July. So check in 18 to 25 years and see if he's on Raw.
Very good. Yeah, no, you heard it here first. I mean, he's making his debut, and like I said, brother, your life's going to change in a great way, but an exhausting way, and you got a lot going on here for sure, and we'll definitely have to have you back on. And if anybody is interested, of course, in bringing you on, I would wholeheartedly recommend. I mean, you basically had your tryout here. I mean, like, that's what you did right now. So if you made it this far, then I think that if anybody listening has made it this far, then definitely they enjoyed the show. So Ian, it's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. Get your sleep while you can, and you enjoy the rest of your night.
Yeah, and just anytime, give me tips on how to multitask, have a baby, and also watch wrestling. We'll be in touch. And you have a great night, man.
Yeah, yeah. Another story for another night. It's doable, but yes. So you too, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.